Hello and welcome back to the TCM YouTube channel where we are nearing the end. In fact, we are on the final county preview in our county preview series for 2023. And our last county is Worcestershire. And this time we are heading to New Road to preview their season ahead. And joining me to do so is Jack, who is a Worcestershire fan. Jack, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the channel. First off, 7 days to go until the start of the season. How excited are you to see Worcestershire in action?
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you for having me on. Yeah, like you say, 7 days. I am very looking forward to it. It's been a long winter, not helped by a great football season from the team I support in Cheltenham, but hopefully onto a better cricket season ahead.
Absolutely, and there's lots of reasons to be optimistic at Worcestershire because there's been a lot of change in the off season. You've got a brand new head coach in Alan Richardson, by to the Gidman era. You've got Adam Hose from Warwickshire coming in for you as a top order bat, Matthew Waite from Yorkshire, and you signed Azhar Ali, Michael Bracewell, and Mitchell Santner. So there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start with the change in head coach. Do you think it was about time for that at Worcestershire?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it was the right decision. I mean, whilst I know Gidman was there in the sort of early 2019 days where we did have a bit of success, I just think it got a little bit stale, and I do think a change was needed. Regarding Richardson, he speaks well. He seems a good guy. There is an element of I maybe would have liked a completely fresh new head coach, given that he was Gidman's number two, if you like. However, I fully support him, and hope he does well.
It'll be interesting to see how that dynamic propels Worcestershire this season. Let's turn then to the signings that we mentioned. Who stands out for you? Who is your pick of the signings for Worcestershire this year?
I mean, getting Adam Hose that's just a superb bit of business. I mean, what 550 odd blast runs last year, 100 against us at that night at Edgbaston, which was quite a low point in recent years. But he's just some serious striker of cricket ball, isn't he? Like he doesn't just clear the rope; he clears it by miles. So I think that's a superb signing. But he's also got a bit of measuredness about him, like that night against us. I think Warwickshire were 3 for 2, and he sort of came in and steadied it a bit, and then just accelerated, which I think we have been missing, that sort of measured cricketer, if you like. And I think Hose will bring that. And another person who I'm very excited about, who I think will bring the same type of know when to accelerate an innings, is that Michael Bracewell. I mean, just won New Zealand ODI Player of the Year, got a stellar 100 against, I think, India. I watched the highlights and he was just banging it out the park for fun. So I think he'll be a very good addition, experience, just coming into his prime years like Hoses. And yeah, I think them two are superb additions to our middle order, and Bracewell will be key with the ball. The other Santner, well, we've had him before, very, again, sort of measured cricketer. He was very well liked by the Worcester lads when he came, must have been about 6 years ago now, which doesn't feel like 6 years ago. But, I think that's a very good signing. I must admit, it is interesting how they've gone for 2 spin bowlers in the Blast, which, that's a very good spin attack on paper. However, maybe, we have been prone to leaking runs at end of innings. So I do think maybe one of the seam bowlers will have to step up a bit more than they have done previously.
It'll be interesting to see how, of course, those signings fit in. I think you've covered it nicely there. Let's talk about who you've lost though, because we've talked about a lot of change in Worcestershire's side this season. Obviously, no Moeen Ali is the big one for you, and you've also lost your Ed Barnard, both of which are going to Warwickshire. How big of a loss is that for Worcestershire as a side, or do you think they'll just won't be affected by it?
I mean, I do think I know when Moeen was and sort of wasn't available as a bit. Some games he was here and then he'd go off with England, but when he was around Worcester, you could just see the sort of effect he had on the other players, just his leadership, his calmness. You look back on games like that T20 Blast semi final at Edgbaston when we pipped Notts Outlaws by one run. You just look at his captaincy there to sort of get the team going, drag it back. And I just think he's played some stellar knocks and he's been at the club, 16 years, led us to a T20 Blast trophy. You've got to say thanks. And I do wish him well. It is a shame how he's moved to, Warwickshire, being the rival county. And the same with Ed Barnard, that goes. I mean, that will be a big loss, especially in the championship. I think he was our leading run scorer with about 900 runs or so. However, he had sort of staggered a bit in the white ball stuff. I do think if he sort of wants to, maybe get 100 contract or something, maybe going to like a club like Warwickshire will benefit his chances of that. But we've replaced him well with Matthew Waite, who I didn't mention there actually, but I think he'll be a good signing. I think whilst he's not as good as batsman as Barnard, I think he's as good as bowler, if not slightly better. And yeah, that's a good replacement as far as I'm concerned.
So it won't have too much of an impact then. That's good to hear. Let's turn then to obviously your form from last year and looking ahead into this year. You were fourth in Division 2, ninth in the One Day Cup and ninth in the Vitality Blast. Not a great season at all. Are you hoping for much better this season? Are you expecting much better this season?
Yeah, I mean, in the white ball stuff, I don't, as bad as it is to say, I don't really think you can get much worse, to be honest. I mean, no, it was a tough year. I mean, talking about the 2020s first, I mean, whilst it wasn't good enough, I don't think they were helped by the fact that one of their overseas and Bravo and Moeen both missed the first 4 games when it was sort of said to us fans that they would be available. And we did lose our first 4 games. And, by the time they come, it's pretty much all sort of done. But yeah, it was a very disappointing season. We were well beaten on quite a few occasions, famously that night in front of the cameras at Edgbaston, in front of, 20,000, got, 144 run defeat, which, will sting. But yeah, I mean, it did happen a bit, I think the night before we were well beaten by Yorkshire. Northants gave us a good going. And, it was a tough season. The same sort of thing in the One Day Cup, although it was a bit better. A couple of wins, but that said, 4 wins in 22 white ball games is a bit of a sorry stat, really, and only one of them came when we weren't mathematically knocked out. So yeah, very much a case, got to look to get a bit better. And I think, like we've mentioned with the off-season business, I think there's some great signings there, a bit of more of a reassurance in the middle order. And hopefully, I think there's a lot of players with a point to prove, if you like. And hopefully, and they're they're a capable group of lads. It's just stepping up and hopefully seeing a better 2023.
Let's turn to and have a look at then some of those players in a bit more detail for you then. So where to start, eh? Let's start with Joe Leach, who's an all-rounder, because I read an article from him. He suggested that your depth in bowling is going to be your strength in the county championship this year. Would you agree with him? Do you think you've got a strong bowling attack that will be able to combat the county championship?
Yeah, certainly with regards to the championship, I think Leach himself took about 30 odd wickets and I think he missed a few games with injury, so it was a good return from him. Dylan Pennington, who I really like, I think he took 44 wickets in the championship last year, and I think he's a very good bowler, and I think there's more to come from him as well. Maybe I've mentioned about players stepping up. Maybe he's one of them players who step up in the white ball stuff as well. But yeah, I think they've got a very, very good seam of attack going into the county championship. The one area I am slightly concerned about with regards to red ball cricket is a spin bowler. I think Josh Baker seems a very sort of promising talent. However, I think they have sort of missed a real sort of lead spin bowler, if you like, because Baker did miss a large chunk of last season through injury, and he might be in and out the team this year. They might go 5 seamers, they might not. But yeah, like a type like we signed Mitchell Santner. So if we had him for the championship as well, I'd be very confident going into the season ahead. But yeah, I think going back to Leach's point, I do think with regards to red ball cricket, maybe not so much white ball cricket, that we've got a very strong and deep bowling attack.
Let's turn then. You mentioned there about Josh Tongue and Josh Baker as well. These two young sort of talents. How good is it for Worcestershire to have them as a bowling unit and to have these talents coming through?
Yeah, I think it's excellent, to be honest. I mean, there is quite a lot of young talent coming through a new road. You mentioned Josh Tongue, and it'll sort of be like a new signing in a way because he has sort of struggled with injury quite a lot. But like you say, he's been away with England Lions, did well overseas. And I think, he'll do really well coming into the 2023 season. They will have to manage his workload. And like we mentioned just in that previous question, it is important that we have a few options in the pace attack so he can play maybe a couple of games and then sit one out. And maybe he might be that bowler in the blast, which we have been missing, where games at the death have been slipping a bit in the last couple of years. Like there was that game at Headingley where we had Yorkshire 55 for 5 at the halfway point, and they still managed to get 190 or something like that. So maybe he'll lead that death bowling unit. With regards to others, Josh Baker, I think he's a very, very promising talent. Like you say, can offer a bit with the bat. And there are others. Ben Gibbon did well. Kashi Fali looks a very talented lad. And one of the most, I think, exciting prospects out in New Road is certainly Jack Haynes. I mean, boy, that man can bat. He times a cricket ball like very well. So I'm very excited to see how well he does in the 2023 season.
But definitely ones to watch then, absolutely. Turn to batting then, because we've talked about strength in bowling in the championship, but we need to talk a bit about batting. Do you think you may, as a team, fail to impress on the batting side of things just because you've not really had a couple of years where you've got strong openers at the top? What are your thoughts on how you're going to go this season?
Yeah, with regards to the top order, I mean, I think Jake Libby in the last 3 seasons has been brilliant. I mean, 2 years he's got, I think is it PCA Championship Team of the Year, I think in 2020 and 2021. He had a bit of a dip last year, but I'm fully backing him to sort of get back to his best. I think what's crucial about someone like a Libby is his temperament. Like he'll just stick at it. And that can be said about Azhar Ali, who I think will be better this year than he was last year. Did have a good campaign last year. But I think we'll be getting more out of him this year. With regards to players like Pollock, I mean, he is a bit sort of gun-ho, bit hit and miss. You know, he is the type of player that can win you a game. Like, he got a match-winning knock at Merchant Taylor's against Middlesex, which, you know, 100 off like 60, 70 balls, which, you know, takes a game from a opposition. But yeah, maybe a little bit more consistency we could be looking from someone like a Pollock. Like you say, the middle order, I think Barnard will be a huge loss, but hopefully, you know, I mean, Adam Hose, I think he'll play a bit of red ball cricket. He has got a promotion in the past with Warwickshire. So I think there is, like I said earlier, a few players with points to prove, and hopefully they'll prove them points in the 2023 season.
Yeah, let's talk about captaincy then a bit. And Brett Oliveira, I believe, is your captain. Is that correct? Um, what do you think about him as a captain and as a batter? I know he sort of failed to perform in the batting area last year in your white ball campaigns. But what do you think about him as a captain? And what do you think about you know, how he's going and developing the Worcestershire side?
Yeah, I think I'm really happy that Dolly's captain. I think, you know, that you could see there were strides whilst a few games when, you know, it was in the balance and maybe slightly towards us, we did lose sort of that grasp on games, which ended in defeat. But I really like him as a captain, and I'm happy that this year he's going to be the T20 captain, which I think just gives that sort of what's the word, like assurance type thing. Like last year, I think we had 3 different T20 captains, which I don't think sort of helped, and I just think it gives that continuity. And he has done it before in them years which we were successful, when Moeen Ali was with England or something. And I just think it's important we get a bit of an identity about ourselves back. You know, we've got 3 spin bowlers. We've got to use them to our advantage somehow, you know, push the boundaries out a bit. And we've got like clean strikers of a cricket ball, like Adam Hose and Pollock, you know, with if them boundaries are out, you know, you still back to hit it, back to clear them. But with regards to D'Oliveira, I think he's a good captain. I think his white ball cricket has come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. I think he was T20 player of the season in the last 2 years running, I think last year. His bowling's improving, and I think the boys like him. And I think as captain, you know, you've got to have respect to the changing room. And I think, you know, I'm pleased he's the captain. You know, the D'Oliveira names run throughout Worcestershire. So, yeah, I'm sure he'll do well and get us back to where we want to be.
Let's turn to your one to watch now. Someone who you think fans of counties across the country should be looking out for at Worcestershire this season. Who are you going to go for and why?
I do think the obvious one amongst Worcestershire fans would be to say Jack Davies. I mean, he's a young lad, but the boy can bat seriously well. Yeah, I think he had a very good red ball season. The T20s last year, he did well. He picked up an injury, but I think he got nearly 300 runs in about 9 or 10 games, which ain't bad. Which was quite good, actually. But yeah, he just looks a real talent. And I do think, you know, we will struggle to keep him. It is his last year in contract, unfortunately. So I do think come the end of the season, there are going to be counties like the likes of Notts, Lancs, these kind of counties that will be knocking on the door, trying to get him out of Worcester. But hopefully we get him tied up. I'd be surprised if we have him for the One Day Cup, like I just mentioned about losing players. I'd be amazed if he didn't get picked up in that 100 wildcard pick. But, you know, if somehow we do have him, that'd just be brilliant. But, yeah, I think he's one to watch in terms of I think Gareth Roderick, who's had a couple of he's had a challenging time both on and off the pitch. So, and he had a really good end to last September, got a couple of hundreds, which pleased a lot of Worcestershire fans. So I think with regards to the championship, you know, I think he's one to watch.
Definitely. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Finally, then let's turn to your predictions. Pin you down a bit. Get you looking into your crystal ball. Shall we start with the Championship Division Two? Quite a strong division, I'd say. This time it's wide open though. Do you reckon you can do better than fourth than you did last year?
I do think we can. However, you do say, and I agree with you, I think it will be quite a wide open race. Um, I think we'll just miss out. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I do think that spin bowler is a little bit of an issue. Um, yeah, so I'll go third, I think. But we could get promoted, but I think I'll stick with third.
A little bit of an improvement on last year, though. On to the One Day Cup then. We've talked about how it might be your best chance at silverware. I'm going to pin you down. Are you getting to the knockout stages of of that tournament this year?
I think so, yes. I mean, even if we do lose 3 or 4 players, I think the squad is still strong enough to get to them knockout stages. Obviously, it'd be a question of how far. Do you know what? If we don't somehow lose many players, I really would back us to get to the final. Um, However, I think like Haynes, D'Oliveira, Ben Cox might get called up, so I'll go semi-final. However, I am optimistic and wouldn't rule us out of getting to Trent Bridge and hopefully lifting the One Day Cup.
And then finally, then for our last point, Vitality Blast. It has been a strength of Worcestershire's in the past. Not great last year, as we've talked about. Are you gonna do well this year? Whereabouts would you put yourselves in the group, and then would you put yourselves at finals day at Edgbaston or knockouts? I don't know. Whereabouts do you think they'll sit?
I think, like you mentioned, if we could get a step closer back to the 2018-2019 side, that won it and run us up. It'd be nice. However, this year I'm not sure that will be the year. I'd just like to see some sort of improvements with the bat ball. And actually, one thing which I quickly want to touch on, which I didn't mention, was the fielding was so crucial when we did do well. You're just on it, and we looked a really well drilled side. So that's something I hope we get back to. Anyway, in terms of a prediction, this is the one I've been sort of, will we make it? Will we not? I've had us in the top 4 and out, but I'm going to say we're just going to miss out. I think the North group's looking really strong. Like as we're recording today, Notts have just signed Shaheen Shah Afridi, which is just an incredible signing.
It not only makes my Notts preview out of date, but also is an incredible, incredible
Yeah.
side. But yes, so lots of improvement there then for
Yeah.
Worcestershire.
So I'd say about 5th or 6th, just miss out. But I think, we will do better and hopefully make a quarter final. But yeah, 5th or 6th, I'll go.
Improvement on all fronts, hopefully, for Worcestershire. Improvement needed from my presentation skills today because I'm very, very hungover and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So if you're wondering why my faces have just been like this for the entire time, there you go, viewers. Anyway, that concludes our county previews for 2023. Jack, it's been a pleasure having you on as our final guest. If you enjoyed, please do like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll be bringing you much more content over the summer. But for now, it is goodbye. Thanks for watching.